before we get to all this, one piece of business, since Boulder and Ned are sort of my muscle shoals, just a quick correction. James William Guercio. It's Caribou Ranch, Netherlands. Let's get it right. Jim, don't go away afterwards. Did you enjoy this movie? Oh man, you know, if you're of a certain age, this was your childhood. This was mine up here. So we're going to sit around and chat with the director and some of the producers. We're going to come to you guys with some questions because I'm sure that you want to hear some stuff also. So we're going to get to that in a little bit. But please help me to welcome the director of the film, a guy whose office is probably about a 3-par shot from this theater. Just a little ways away. And man, this is going to piss you off if you're a filmmaker. This is his first movie. We are thrilled to have him here to talk about it. Please welcome Freddy Camilier.
Hi, Boulder. Thank you. So I want to first tell you about, I want to thank the Boulder Film Festival, Kathy, Robin, Patty, the 400 volunteers. Thank you, all of you guys, for the Boulder Film Festival. It rocks. And I want to just give a shout out to, there's some folks here with the film, my beloved crew. Matt Walker, Raji Manicorn, Ray Smith, a local Boulderite, Josh Miner, a local Boulderite, Matt Walker, went to see you, and Michael Ralph. I just want to give a shout out to my crew, my beloved crew, and brothers and sisters. And then I'd like to invite up for a little Q&A for my co-producers, Raji Manicorn, also known as Sacagaway to me, and Matthew Davis Walker.
I want to start with you, Freddy, because I love the story of how this movie came to be. Speaking of Steve, you just take a minute and just tell us how you didn't have any idea of this movie until you got in a car.
So, my mic. So Stephen is a very old childhood friend from 3rd grade, and he wanted to be here tonight, and he is not. He's sad about that. And so he was moving from the East Coast, moving jobs and moving his life to New Mexico, and he needed help taking his car from, we left New York City, and driving to New Mexico. So he recruited me. I went to the chiropractor twice that week. I begrudgingly said okay, and glad I did. And then we decided to take back roads to the south. No highways, no GPS, and we ended up in Muscle Shoals late one night. And we knew a little bit about Muscle Shoals, of some of the music we love, but no idea of the incredible magnitude of music that came from there. And so the next 24 hours we spent there, and we were profoundly moved by the town, the story, the river, the place, and that was the genesis of the film.
You had taken off from Muscle Shoals. Like you'd left there.
And
turned around.
Well, yeah, we didn't actually drive through. We were north of there a little. We drove past it, and we drive, so we get tired, and we pull over and said, where do we want to sleep? We pulled up the map, and we saw Tupelo, Mississippi ahead of us. We thought, oh, we could have the birthplace of Elvis, and then we saw Muscle Shoals behind us, and we thought, you know, music that we knew at that time that we loved was Clarence Carter, Allman Brothers, and Leonard Skinner. We said, no question, we drove backwards on a 17-mile road trip to sleep in Muscle Shoals.
So Matt, I want to ask you, I'm sure that Bono, Mick, Keith, Aretha, Steve Winwood, Jimmy Cliff, all these people weren't waiting outside your door, to walk in, sit in a chair. I can't imagine the logistical problems that you had of getting all these people on film.
Totally. A lot of these guys took a lot of wrangling to get to sit down for us. A few of the interviews that had been set up And at the last moment, their schedules had changed, and we had to kind of shuffle our schedules to match with them. But yeah, we interviewed Mick and Jimmy in Los Angeles, Keith in New York, Bono in London, and Steve Winwood in Nashville, and yeah, it took some wrangling for sure.
Give us a good story of anybody that you talked to that didn't make it into the movie.
So there definitely, I mean, the story goes, I mean, literally the film could be a 6-part miniseries, and there are a ton of people that, you know, that didn't make it into the film that were influential to Muscle Shoals, and you know, either their schedules didn't work or it didn't work with our schedules, but overall it was wonderful to sit down with these people who were so important to the story of Muscle Shoals, and were so willing to tell the story of these guys, and who'd never gotten recognition. So it was wonderful to sit down with them and shake their hand, and they were so humble and so excited to be able to tell the story of Muscle Shoals.
Yeah. Roger, do you have any idea how much footage you shot for this film?
He knows.
Hours.
I don't know. Yeah, it was 4 years of going to Muscle Shoals is mostly what I did, and I didn't do all of these celebrity interviews. So we shot a lot of stuff in Muscle Shoals just by itself. I don't know, hundreds of hours. Over 100.
But Freddie, when you turned around, when you guys were there and you saw, oh, this is Muscle Shoals, you had no idea who Rick Hall was. You had no idea what he had been through in his life.
Correct.
So you wanted to just start this movie, have this movie of being about the studio, about the music. Then you get to know Rick and you realize there's another movie. I feel like I watched 2 movies about the studio, about Rick,
Right.
and about his life and what it meant to the studio.
Right. So we knew that we wanted to, you know, we watched a lot of music documentaries, and before we knew, that is correct, we didn't know anything about Rick and his story or the Swamper story.
A little bit about his reputation preceded him. You know, we were a little nervous, at least.
Yeah, he's a little intimidating in the beginning for sure. And yeah, he can be intimidating, as you might have seen in the film. But we knew we wanted to do something different, and basically we just went into it with the idea that we wanted to find what stories were there, and so we began to just take note of and learn the story as we went. And then as we did that, we knew that, you know, we wanted to find, well, look, there's a lot of music documentaries where it's just a talking head, and you learn the, you know, historical aspect of the story, which is cool, and then, you know, but we were looking for, well, first of all, we were moved, you know, greatly by the place, you know, we felt something, and so that was one of the first things. We wanted to sort of capture what we felt while we were there, and that was just the place. Then we got into learning about Rick's story, and all the guys' story, and you just sort of look for where the story is that, you know, moves you, and sort of you want to bring those stories to the surface.
One of the things that really affected me in the music is, or in the film, was how I felt like you go to Hawaii. You're in Hawaii. Hawaii gives you this feel. You go to Paris. Paris, you get this feel. You got to point across that this little corner of Alabama is like those 2 places, that you're there and you get the feel. Like it just seeps into you, right?
Totally. Yeah.
No? Like, tell me about how you must have felt that when you were there.
I felt in the first 24 hours it was very powerful and very palpable. And so, and that was
You
one
gotta
of
go. You gotta go.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it in the first few hours, but we've been back now multiple times a year for the last 3 to 4 years, and I think it's had its effect. Yeah.
And true story about Dwayne Allman camping in the parking lot?
True story.
Like, I'm not leaving.
No.
You know?
I'm not sure if it was concrete or dirt. I would have picked the grass better nearby, but
You know, any one of the three of you, best story that Rick Hall told you. But I could just get this feeling, he sort of sat back.
good story. Wow. He's got so many. Jeez. What do you guys think?
I just loved his command of a room. When the guy walked into a room, all eyes were on him, and whatever word he spoke was the word of the Lord of sorts. You know, everyone was just right there with him, and if they disagreed with him or not, it didn't matter. They did what he wanted and what he kind of suggested. So.
Well, I also think a few people say it in the film that he's just so soulful. I didn't anticipate that. I was really kind of scared of him before we went down there, but I mean, it takes a little while, but then he's the first to say, I love you. And he means it. He's like, he's our family now.
Yeah, when you're in your
So that's not a story, but that's total testament to the soul that man has.
I love Bono's line where he says, these white guys look like they should be working in the supermarket. And I read that, Paul Simon comes down there to record. Paul Simon comes in the front door and walks right behind the guys because he thought they were the office staff. These can't be the right guys. Can't be. I want to take you guys here back to a 3-week time span in January and February of 1967 with Muscle Shoals Studio and the musicians. And in the 3-week time span, January and February 67, January 20th, Arthur Conley records Sweet Soul Music. 4 days later, Aretha records I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You and Do Right Woman, Do Right Man on the same day. On February 1st of 67, Wilson Pickett records Funky Broadway. And then, February 14th, it was in New York City. But still, Valentine's Day, 46 years ago today, probably right now. Spooner Oldham was on piano, Jimmy Johnson was on guitar, and Roger Hawkins was on drums. On this side. This is the anniversary of that song recorded on Valentine's Day. So as producers, you saw this film, you knew what you had, you knew the interviews that you had at hand, but there must have been obstacles that came your way to getting this film onto the screen. What were some of the things that you guys had to overcome? I mean, we look at it and go, of course this thing should be on the screen. But there must have been stuff that just came up, that you came up against.
We were just outside discussing the fact that there's a huge story here, and that it's just had to be taken out left and right. There's tons more that was shot that we love that you guys didn't get to see. So I know it's been more of a challenge for this guy to decide what stays and what goes, but I know that's been a really big one for this story, which just, I mean, there's tons more.
Tell it! Sequel!
The two stories I'm missing most are, one is the story of the song Simple Man, which was a Skinner song that they went up there and recorded the first version of, which was in the film. We kind of sequenced for it, and it was a beautiful sequence, and to me, I love that song. I've always loved that song for a very long time, and it was very emblematic to me, those lyrics of basically these guys in this story. That was painful to leave that out. And then there was a great story of Aretha Franklin right after she had gotten divorced, and she was singing Call Me in New York. And as she was singing it, she he started to cry, and the teardrops were hitting the music stand, and they were, Jimmy, the Swampers and the guys were in the booth watching, and the teardrops were hitting the music stand, and they were hitting the light, and they were refracting as the water droplet splattered. It was refracting the light, and when that started happening, she just kept singing the take of "Call Me," which is a beautiful song. Many of you know it, I'm sure. And then there was not a dry in the house, and we shot a beautiful recreation of that, which was awesome. And so that is not a movie, and that was another painful one to let go of.
Mike down just a
A
bit.
little loud, hot on the mic.
I get another couple of questions, and then we want to come to you guys with some questions here in the audience. We have microphones down here in the 2 aisles, so feel free to just come on down to the mics. I'll come right out to you here in just a second. But why don't we bring the lights up just a little bit so people can see these mics, and please come to them, because that's part of what this festival is about, giving you a chance to talk directly here to the filmmakers. So, Freddie, I want to ask you about this, that I feel like at the end, it's almost film therapy of bringing the Swampers back to Rick, and then we're working together again. We know that music has a power. We know that film has a power. But I feel like in this case, the making of film had the power of bringing these guys back together. Maybe they wouldn't have done this if you hadn't come upon them. You can sort of talk about what it was like at the time in the studio with these guys coming back and seeing each other after all this time. And after Rick Hall saying, this is war.
Yeah, we saved that. That was actually the last day of filming. We saved that for that moment. And yeah, it was great. It was, it's like we knew that early on that was we were building that. And so to wait 3 years to actually do it was a very cool thing. And Roger Hawkins and Rick did not see each other for like 7 or 10 years till that very moment. And those guys had made peace, but from talking to them that day and since then, a lot of healing, more healing came out, and they shared a lot of stuff that's not in the film. That's also not in the film. But they sat around and we filmed them, and they talked a lot about just, what happened and their feelings, and, more healing came that day, and that was cool to be a part of that.
As the guy who was the former musician, you saw Stones in 7th grade yourself.
Yeah.
To just make you feel like, hey, I'm in the music business.
No, I didn't feel I was in the music business, but I felt like I was making a film, so that felt good.
Okay, so, being a film festival, we have a lot of filmmakers, here. If you would please tell us what you do now and how long it was ago that you got into film, that you decided I want to work in film.
About 6 years ago.
6 years ago, and now this is on the screen. Not bad, right? And what do you do now here in town?
I do real estate and I do this.